These 11 abandoned places are strange, empty, and full of history. Let's take a look at the most interesting ones I could find. When you start taking a look at this town, it almost doesn't even feel like it is real. It kind of feels like you're watching a Disney movie while being drunk. But what exactly happened that this town has this massive amount of fairy tale castles while no one lives in them? So this place, which is close to Modono, was originally planned to be a luxury residential community to gain the attention of people with a good amount of money in their pockets. And then problems began soon after constructions when the Serret group who was responsible for the project got complaints for breaching laws and not paying workers. So by 2018 they went bankrupt, and now we got around 600 castles standing around with no purpose at all. I mean, it's a cool sight, but definitely a huge waste of time and money for everyone involved in this project. This one is a little more special. This beautiful castle was built in the 13th century but went through many changes throughout the years. In the beginning it was owned by family Bosse, but during the medieval times it got raided by English people not once but twice. Things got worse though for the castle, because it got completely ruined during the French Revolution. In 1809, businessman François Hennecart bought it and obliged himself to restore the entire complex. But no, it got sold again to Baron Edgar Laujoin, who changed it into the water castle we see on today's pictures. But his new water park switched elements in 1932. A worker who installed a heater for the Baron made a little mistake, and the entire castle went up in flames. And this caused some of the rarest books and paintings in the castle to turn into dust. Which brings us to the current time, where a French startup started a huge crowdfunding initiative and raised 1.6 million euros to buy the castle and restore it. It has been ongoing since then, and at some point will find its way back to its original beauty. Now moving south into the middle of a desert, there lies this village that slowly gets swallowed by sand. El Ghuraifa got built in the 1970s and was meant to provide modern housing to the El Kadbi tribe, which is one of the region's oldest families. But right after the building process was completed, it was mysteriously abandoned. What must have happened that newly constructed buildings got completely left behind by most villagers? So the easy answer would be that sandstorms made it too hard to live in this village. But others talk about jinns. Those are spirits from Arabian folklore. Locals claimed that they had heard really strange sounds at nights and felt an oppressive kind of presence. So we won't know the answer for sure what happened to El Ghuraifa, but it definitely stays an interesting mystery. Unlike the castle from before, this medieval hilltop village cannot be saved. Located in Basilicata and built around the 8th century, this village is truly historical. For over 1000 years it was inhabited by people. Back in the days it was filled with Greek settlers, but in later centuries the region control shifted when different cultures such as the Lombards and Normans took over. Their main language turned to Latin and the Greek settlers basically turned Italian. After the Italian unification in the 1860s, Craco also officially became part of modern Italy we know today. But history started falling apart when in the 1960s a massive landslide caused major depopulation. And not only that, but a flood in 1972 and an earthquake in the 1980s made things decisive. This led to the last residents who tried to hold on to their homes to abandon Craco once and for all. All that remains now are empty houses that are slowly crumbling and eroding by time and nature. This place doesn't have actual pyramids, but a mountain that looks like one. It was a coal mining settlement founded by Sweden in 1910. It had schools, a cultural center, a sports complex and more. Basically all you can expect from a town. Sweden then decided to sell the entire settlement to the Soviet Union in 1927. Around 70 years later, the entire mine had to be closed off because of economic difficulties, which led to the many citizens being unemployed and having to leave. But what makes this place very different from many ghost towns is that to this day it is pretty well preserved. Due to the Arctic climate of the region, the buildings, streets and monuments are still in good shape. Since 2007, they work on turning it into a popular tourist attraction, so people can take a trip back in time and see how people have lived in the past. Lennox Castle was built in the 19th century to be a grand mansion and was inhabited till the Glasgow Corporation acquired it in 1927. They redesigned it into a hospital for people with learning disabilities. The original goal was it to help those people in need, but sadly there are many stories about how badly those patients were actually treated, from being dangerously underweight and malnourished to being literally tortured. One of them was Hughie McIntyre, who gave an interview where he stated that he was kicked, heavily punched and had severe injuries. He said he lost his will to survive and still has nightmares to this day thinking about it. And there are also reports that patients who didn't even need drugs were given them to ensure that they could not cause any problems. Frances Brown, who was a trainee for some time at Lennox Castle, said that those people were not treated as humans and that this was the worst experience of her life. So this hospital, which started off as a normal residency, is now just a horrible place filled with many dark stories. Many people had to suffer till it got closed off in 2002, leaving behind not just empty rooms but also a place of fear and just pure horror. Takakonuma Greenland is an interesting case. The amusement park was opened in 1973 but had closed in 1975 for repairs. There are many claims from former workers that the park experienced several fatalities, although to this day it remains unproven. It is said that a young mother and both her kids had lost their lives in an accident and that 2 other visitors fell out of the roller coasters. There could definitely be some truth in the stories, as the park was built in a short amount of time and the quality of the attraction suffered because of it. The park was closed for 7 years till it got reopened, so the question is, why did it take so long to work on repairs? That makes me think that there were severe issues with the attractions and that those stories don't seem far-fetched. The amusement park was then opened for 17 years but had closed in 1999 because of poor attendance and deteriorating facilities, which just adds more fuel to the stories. Between 2006 and 2007, the park then got demolished and now just remains as a place with many unsolved mysteries around it. Moving over to Japan's neighbor, Kuk Po Village is a historic place in the northeastern New Territories of Hong Kong. This village was established between the late Ming and early Qing dynasty, which would be between the 1600s and 1700s. This tiny village had a big community of around 300 residents by the 1900s and played a significant role in agriculture and trade. The economy of the village was primarily based on rice farming and shrimp fishing. And what was special about the village was the construction of Western-inspired buildings, such as the Grade 3 listed Kai Choi School. However, after World War II, Kuk Po experienced a gradual decline as villagers kind of had enough. They migrated to urban areas or overseas in search of better economic opportunities, as this village wasn't the most promising. What's different from other ghost towns is that Kuk Po's abandonment was slow and took tens of years. Nowadays, it is just a town with a handful of residents left who stay true to their roots. One of the more known and most famous ghost towns goes to Bodie. Its story began in 1859 when gold was discovered near the town. This obviously led to thousands of people coming over to visit and filling the town with around 10,000 settlers. But that's not the only thing Bodie was known for. It quickly developed a reputation for being violent and lawless. Dozens of saloons, gambling halls, brothels and crime was the daily life of anyone who was there at the time. But as the gold got mined away, people didn't see any purpose to stay, and by the early 20th century, the numbers of the settlers dropped immensely. What makes Bodie so interesting in today's time is how well it's actually been preserved. Furniture, tools and other things are still where they used to be. On top of that, Bodie also is home to the Bodie curse. Anyone who steals even the smallest item from the town is said to suffer from terrible luck until you return it to where it belongs to. And since there are many packages that get sent back to Bodie, might leave the curse with a little truth in it. Now this one is different from the others, as this ghost town is an entire island that got left behind. What looks like a military island has actually nothing to do with war. Even though its nickname is Battleship Island, this island was for something else. In 1890, Mitsubishi turned it into a coal mining money print. All workers and their families were crammed into these giant apartment blocks. In the 1950s, the population was already up to 5,000 people and made it one of the most densely populated places in the entire world. Life was insanely tough for the people because of that limited space and the walls of the sea around them. Schools and shops were all squeezed into narrow concrete corridors and people were really unhappy. In 1974, the mines did eventually get shut down because Japan wasn't in need of coal energy anymore. So now this island has just stood abandoned to this day with no real purpose anymore. But Hashima Island still stands as a perfect example of how not to treat hardworking people. Once Detroit's most impressive train station opened in 1913, became really sad to look at. By the 1940s it had around 4,000 people daily who traveled across the US. But when cars and planes turned into our natural way of transportation, it became useless. In 1988 the cost of the entire complex no longer made any sense to hold on to, and so it got completely shut down and just stood there for many years till 2018, when Ford actually bought the station and made a promise to restore it to its old beauty. It took over 6 years and with a cost of around $1 billion got reopened in 2024. Not as a train station but as a tech, retail and innovation center. It also got back its coffee shops and public spaces for people to enjoy their time at. So the story is one of a few where an abandoned place got turned back into something more impressive than before. And if you are still hungry for more, check out this video or jump straight into this one. Thanks for watching and until next time.